So my name's Jon Mayhew and I'm the author of A Poison Tree and A Fearful Symmetry, the first two books in the ongoing DCI Will Blake series. I'm also a children's author. I've written for Bloomsbury and for quite a few educational publishers, Oxford University Press and Collins as well. But my latest venture is into crime, crime writing, that is, not actual criminal enterprise. And I live on the Wirral Peninsula, which is a small sticky out piece of land between Liverpool and North Wales. And it's quite a curious place to live, really. People tend not to visit it because you can't really pass through. But yeah, that's kind of where I live. I live down on the D side by the marshes, and I live there with my family, and I've got some chickens and a couple of dogs as well, a couple of Jack Russells as well. And yeah, so that's kind of me. That's what I do. I've been writing for about 10 years, and it's what I do for a living. Previous to that, I was a teacher. Yeah, so that's Jon Mayhew. So what is A Poison Tree about? Well, I just happen to have a copy here, and A Poison Tree is the first in the adventures of DCI Will Blake. It starts with the murder of a young girl in a local beauty spot on the Wirral, and as Blake investigates and his team investigates, they realise that her death is connected with murders that took place over 40 years ago. Murders that were, it appeared, were unrelated, but suddenly a connection has been made along with this current murder. And so Blake and his team have to rake up the past. They have to interview suspects from a long time ago, and all kinds of twists and turns take place, and it's quite a fast-paced adventure, and hopefully readers will enjoy it and have a good time trying to figure out who the murderer is and why this poor girl had to die. So that's A Poison Tree. Yeah, A Poison Tree initially began when I was working in a charity shop. Unfortunately, at the moment, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, it's closed at the moment. But I work in a charity shop as a volunteer, and as you do, really, when you're a writer, you draw inspiration from all over the place, and all these clothes came in. Initially, I thought these clothes would come in, and it just struck me as odd. I thought, like, all different people have worn these clothes. They've been to all kinds of different events, and I just thought, what if some of these clothes belong to people who've been murdered or or had committed crimes? And so that was where the story began. I had the idea of someone like me, maybe, or a volunteer discovering it was actually initially a dress, a kind of iconic dress that they recognised. Slowly, as I worked the story into shape, the dress became a pair of red sneakers. Oh, sorry, which you can see behind me on the shelf there. A pair of red Converse baseball boots, or whatever you want to call them. We always called them baseball boots when I was a kid, but yeah. And yeah, the story begins with the discovery of the shoes. There are 6 pairs of shoes, each in their own box, all wrapped carefully, but they're not necessarily in great condition. They haven't been looked after. They're obviously trophies of some description, and that's how the story begins. So yes, A Poison Tree was inspired by my work in a charity shop, and I've had other ideas as well for further crime stories from that actual experience, really. So yes, yeah, that is absolutely right. So what am I planning next? Well, world domination. a heist, maybe. No. Um, so the third Will Blake story is well underway. I've just had an editor having a read through it just from a structural point of view, and I'm going to be making a few changes on that, and then hopefully I'll get that all tidied up pretty soon, and I'll go into proofreading, and that will be out mid-September hopefully. And so yeah, I'm kind of interested in writing using crime thriller tropes, but you know, so the customary things that you would expect to happen in a crime thriller, but then just coming at them from another angle. So yeah, that's kind of, so my next plan is to I've got I don't want to spoil it really, but the third book's called The Bones of the Dead. I take all my book titles from William Blake poetry. Will Blake, DCI Will Blake, has that name, and it causes him no amount of, or no little amount of annoyance when people want him to recite Tiger Tiger and all kinds of things like that. So it's quite nice looking through Blake's poetry and finding suitable titles that actually suggest stories as well. So the third book is called The Bones of the Dead, which is from a part of Blake's Proverbs of Hell, where one of the proverbs is drive your cart and your plough across the bones of the dead, which sounds awful, but it's actually it's quite a positive message in as much as it's saying, you know, don't dwell on the past, don't let the past hold you back. If you want to go forward, you've got to plough ahead really, regardless of what's happened in the past. So yeah, so that's partly the connection as well. Yeah, so that's my next plan, is to get that book mapped out, and then yeah, I think the fourth book possibly might be a kind of abduction type story, because I haven't really done I've done the second book, Fearful Symmetry, has an abduction in it, but yeah, this one might be a kind of domestic psycho thriller with a bit of abduction in it as well. Oh gosh, so cram everything in if I can. So that's my next plan. Who are my favourite crime authors? Well, I do like Val McDermid. I like her writing. She's a brilliant writer. And A Place of Execution is one of my favourite books. And there is a little bit of a homage to that in one of my books, but I'm not going to tell you which because it might spoil it for you. Oh, he said. I remember one idyllic summer reading all the Rebus books, just one after the other. Literally like sitting in the garden reading one, finishing that one, and then riding down to the bookshop on my bike and getting another one and reading that one and then getting another one, and yeah, that was great. So I do like Rankin as well, Ian Rankin. I love Luca Veste. His local stories are really good as well. Set in Liverpool, and he's a Wirral lad as well, and I do enjoy those stories. They're great. I love the Murphy and Rossi stories. They're really good. I also like J.D. Kirk, and I love the sort of Scottish toughness and the humour in there is really good in the J.D. Kirk books. Alex Smith is great. And I do like as well, there's a new book that's come out recently, Grim Up North by Dave Gatwood, and he's a great writer, and there's a lot of humour in those books as well. So they're some of my favourites. But I tend to like most things that I read. I would never tell you a book I didn't like. So I'll tell you books I do like, but I'm not a big fan of pouring cold water on what other people might enjoy really. So yeah, so those are some of my favourites.